Hello once again from the Prim Reaper. This is just going to be a short little video because this last month has completely wrecked me. I've had to write 2 giant papers to wrap up my double course semester, a speech for the upcoming Momentum Cafe National Conference, and now a new video script, all while taking care of a 5-month-old. So I hope you'll all indulge me a video that's slightly shorter than normal until I can catch back up here. I also hope you'll forgive me if this video is slightly less visually exciting than usual, as I'm in a bit of a time crunch. To preface what I'd like to talk about here, the presentation I'm helping to create for the conference this weekend focuses on the new effective advocacy program we're trying to create for CAFE. This program will focus on, well, creating effective advocates for men's issues. We hope to teach a number of things, such as how to build alliances with individuals and agencies, how to seek fundraising for men's services, how to communicate, foster respectful dialogue, respond to negative or accusatory commentary, and generally to effectively debate with others. However, another important aspect of this program is in teaching people how to properly research using relevant sources in order to effectively educate others on the relevant issues and concerns affecting men in the world today. After all, if we want people to understand our cause, education, fostering understanding and empathy should be one of our main goals, right? Now, this got me thinking, how many of you have heard phrases like, I shouldn't have to enact the labor of educating you on this topic. I shouldn't have to explain to you about my experiences. Educate yourself. Or how about this lovely little ditty I found not too long ago? Remember, folks, if you don't hold your oppressor's hand while softly explaining to them things they could just as easily Google, and maybe make them some cocoa to help them feel comfortable learning about your lived struggles, you're just a big old meanie who doesn't deserve to be treated like a person. Ahem. Anyway, this is an attitude I see all the time these days, and it honestly drives me batty. It really speaks to a certain level of entitlement that you're not going to find in a much purer form than this. These people argue that you ought to just uncritically take them at their word and automatically believe everything they say because that's the way they feel about the world, and therefore that trumps everything else. Conveniently, these kinds of people are also often the sorts to quickly dismiss men who bring up concerns about hearing comments like yes all men, or phrases like toxic masculinity, or dismiss white people who don't appreciate hearing that they can't be victims of racism, or being told that they're colonizers or oppressors all the time, when the most oppressive thing they've done all month is accidentally cut someone off in traffic. Apparently only one kind of lived experience is expected to stand wholly unchallenged by everyone else. Now, I don't want to be uncharitable here. I went ahead and looked around for discussions and articles surrounding this topic to hear some of the explanations for why people might respond in such a dismissive fashion. Some of the various arguments I've heard are, people don't owe you a conversation about X topic. Don't question our experiences. You're supposed to just listen and believe. I'm tired of having to explain it to people over and over again. We shouldn't have to use our energy explaining these concepts to our oppressors when we could be using that energy to define and determine our own futures. This isn't just a fun educational discussion, this is a discussion about my humanity. If you're not willing to educate yourself on this topic rather than asking someone else to do it for you, then you're clearly not all that sincere about wanting to learn. You get the idea. And yes, these are all genuine examples that I found in various different sources. Now, just for simplicity's sake, let's briefly talk about each of these examples. I'll even provide a quick and easy retort to each one along with the more detailed breakdowns. People don't owe you a conversation about X topic. People don't owe you uncritical acceptance. It's fine if you don't feel up to having a conversation about anything in particular, but if someone is questioning something you have said, maybe they don't believe it, maybe they've never seen it themselves, maybe they genuinely want to learn more, maybe they're simply interested in your experiences, and you don't feel like telling them about it, then you have zero right to expect that they will then go forward having any real sense of your experiences about it. Even if they were to go on Google and find out about other people's lived experiences, there's no guarantee that what they find will reflect your views. Heck, they might find views that reflect the opposite of yours. At that point, they'll continue on with a view that is possibly completely different from yours, and your problem will remain unsolved, at least as far as that individual is concerned. Again, you're totally allowed to refuse conversation for any reason, but in doing so, you also waive the right to expect that your conversation, or lack thereof, partner will then go on to develop a view of your problem that accurately reflects your own. Don't question our experiences. Why? Listen and believe. What makes your experiences immune from scrutiny? Honestly, another easy way to deal with this kind of argument is to just start talking about an experience of yours that is directly the opposite from theirs, and if they have anything negative to say about it, simply tell them not to question your experiences. If they're allowed to do it, you're allowed to do it. If you want to go about this in a less petty way, however, you can simply inform them that you're happy to offer them your support for their experiences, but that you're also allowed to have a healthy amount of skepticism, especially when not everyone is always as honest and sincere as they are. I'm tired of having to explain it over and over again. You haven't explained it to me even once. Just because you've explained it to one person does not mean the person down the street suddenly understands. If this is really an issue that is that significant to you, you're going to want as many people sympathetic to your cause as you can get. If you're saying this sort of thing to me, it tells me you're really not all that passionate about what you're trying to sell. Look at me and my work in men's issues. I never tire about talking with people about the issues that men face that aren't getting proper attention in our society. I'm passionate about it because it's important. People are suffering and changes need to be made. I'm not just going to pack my bag and go home because I've explained it to 5 different people and it was hard. My work isn't finished and I intend to keep going. This is too important not to. If you don't have the same fervor, it tells me you probably don't care all that much about actually changing anyone's mind. We shouldn't have to use our energy explaining these concepts to our oppressors when we could be using that energy to define and determine our own futures. Are your supposed oppressors going to allow you the leeway to define and determine your futures without being challenged? Seems like they really suck at that oppressing job, huh? I feel like oftentimes what constitutes oppression in the minds of people like this is really an ever-expanding concept. There's actually science to back this up, too. A 2018 study I'll link in the low bar found that people will actually respond to decreases in stimulus prevalence by expanding their concept of it. When participants were shown threatening faces in ever-decreasing amounts, they eventually began to view non-threatening faces as threatening. I'm sure a similar phenomenon can be seen in the concept of what constitutes oppressive behavior. Frankly, we're allowed to question what constitutes oppressive behavior, and if you're going to label someone as oppressive simply for questioning and/or challenging your narrative, then quite frankly, nobody is going to stop you from instead putting that energy to more productive and useful means. By all means, be on your way. This isn't just a fun educational discussion. This is a discussion about my humanity. A discussion about your humanity that evidently fails to warrant discussion? The fact that people use this one as though it's some kind of trump card really makes me scratch my head. Presumably, if it's such an important issue that you consider it as foundational to your rights as a human being, you'd think that would only drive you to want to talk about it with even more fervor, would it not? The fact that you're dismissing the possibility of a discussion on the matter because someone else might simply see it more along the lines of a philosophical debate is nonsensical. Nobody is going to know how important it is to you unless you explain how and why that's the case. And referring back up to my first example, you're allowed to reject conversation for any reason, of course, but you don't then get to complain about how nobody's listening to your deep concerns about your humanity. It's hard to listen to the sounds of silence.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And lastly, if you're not willing to educate yourself on this topic rather than asking someone else to do it for you, then you're clearly not all that sincere about wanting to learn. If you're not willing to take a moment to explain your concerns to others, then you're clearly not all that sincere about wanting them to learn. I'm not saying you need to design a lecture to help teach someone the entire history of why you might take issue with a particular topic or feel strongly about a particular subject. I'm also not saying that there might not be people coming at you that are dubious about your experiences, or even trying to present some sort of gotcha. God knows I deal with this on a semi-regular basis myself. I am, however, saying that if you're not even going to take a cursory effort to try and defend and explain your beliefs, then you don't get to just wash your hands of the matter and consider it resolved. You haven't won the battle. You likely haven't convinced anyone to go and do their own research. You haven't raised any awareness or built any knowledge. You haven't done anything. And again, you're allowed to do nothing. But then it comes across as a little hypocritical for getting mad at people who do nothing too. Frankly, I'd be less bothered if instead of all these other examples, you simply said, "Leave me alone." At least that would be a little more honest. Basically, to summarize my views on things, if you really feel passionate about these issues that are close to your heart, you should want to educate others on why you feel that way. You should want to spread awareness, even in the face of people that might disagree with you. That's fine. Debate with people, get their perspectives, build your own, refine your view of things. As far as I'm concerned, if you refuse to do this, yet demand that other people do it themselves, you really don't care about wanting things to be different in any meaningful way. You really don't want your opponents to be better or more knowledgeable people. What you want is to feel morally superior to others and lord it over their head like you're some kind of paragon of virtue. So there you have it. Just something that's been bothering me a bit in the light of all the work I've been doing to bring attention to the issues I do. I'm going to try not to have such a gap between videos in the month of August, since now I have a small gap between classes. So that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.